How is it going, everybody out there? The Roundtable of Wraith is back again. I know you've been patiently waiting for another first impressions video from the four brilliant minds you see in front of you. Not really, but
More like four jabronis.
yeah, these four scrubs. But we try our best, and we have a lot of fun making these videos anyway. So if you are enjoying them, we hope that you enjoy our newest video here featuring Ser Boltyn, the Breaker of Dawn, as Ryan shows off the shiny buy a box promo for the Unlimiteds that we recently got. So we've been making a series of first impressions, playing these characters for a month and a couple weeks now, getting used to them, feeling them out, and Boltyn has been very popular within our team circle, enough so to where the three of you guys, coincidentally, the same three who are playing Prism, are also on the Boltyn train.
Is Bob playing Prism?
Well, you're right. He's fully switched.
I did in the beginning. I did, but I've committed fully to Ser Boltyn. Not having the Luminaris is pretty detrimental to running Prism.
So, as we switch gears from our last catch, which was Levia, we're looking at a warrior here, and on the screen you can see Ser Boltyn in his adult form. He's very proud with he's like got the Attack on Titan Sasageo going on. And it says on his card, it says, if you've charged this turn, attacks you control have +1 power while defended by an attack action card. I hate that ability, but it's fantastic. Underneath that, it says, attack reaction, banish a card from Ser Boltyn's soul. Target attack with power greater than its base power gains go again. This character comes at you, and he, like his counterpart warrior in Dorinthia, has a lot of ways to increase the power of attacks, give it go again, and then swing multiple times with either a weapon or other cheap-costed attack cards. So I just want to say right away, again, we're not saying like this is our best build for this character. We're just saying the things that our team has tried, what we've played, what we like, what we're still trying, what we're still working on. And I'm going to kick this over to Ryan first. Ryan, when you look at Ser Boltyn with these two abilities on this card, does it jump out to you as, wow, this character is going to be a powerful character in the meta, or this character is just maybe like a mid-tier character? Where do you think Ser Boltyn's going to end up in the grand scheme of things with his ability and him being a warrior?
So a couple things. I think number one, the fact that he's a warrior it says a lot. I think LSS has kind of proven so far that warrior is their favorite class, or at least I guess what they identify as probably the most consistent or strongest class. I mean, we all know Dorinthia. We're not going to get into her. But reading his ability, his passive and his attack reaction, I mean, we've never seen a character that has a printed attack reaction on them until we got him. And so the ability to just give everything go again, so long as you meet the criteria and have a card in soul, seems bananas. And in playing him, I mean, you can have some pretty bananas things. He does some pretty crazy stuff. So yeah, I mean, if a character is this aggressive with these two abilities and the warrior support that we've become familiar with Dorinthia, one has to assume that there will be a build for him eventually that is going to flirt with at least tier 1.5, if not tier 1.
Yeah. Bob or Chris, anything you want to add about just right off the block? You've been playing and testing this character. Where do you feel the power level is at? Are you liking it? Do you feel like it's lacking? Are we dealing with a really strong character? What are your gut reactions to getting a couple of games in with him right off the block?
Well, I guess something that we should just note. I mean, it seems implied, but considering the last weekend there was a major calling tournament that was focused on sealed and draft. So we're just looking at it from the constructed perspective, more so CC than Blitz probably for most of us. So just kind of keep that in mind. Some of the things we say probably don't necessarily apply to limited formats like sealed or draft, but there may be a little overlap there. But to answer your question, Jim, I mean, I think, like Ryan said, with his ability to be so aggressive, his passive ability to, give a +1 power to attacks that are blocked or defended by an attack action card, very similar type ability to the Warrior Reprise keyword from Welcome to Wraith. So kind of puts your opponent in some awkward situations where they can maybe make a mistake on the defense and you can just keep having your foot on the gas. And, if Chain is suspected to be one of the more popular constructed decks, at least in these initial stages of Monarch constructed, in my opinion, I think Boltyn does have the ability to keep up with Chain as far as getting them down before he starts to get to that 4, 5, 6 Soul Shackle area to where they're really going crazy. So, sometimes, we said this before, sometimes the best defense is a better offense. And if Chain is one of those popular decks, I think in our initial games, it seems pretty close. I could be wrong, but the games I've played against Mark on Chain, it seems pretty 50-50.
I will say that he is, if we can say something to intro this video, this is not your dad's Warrior. This is not Dorinthia. This is two completely different play styles. So this Boltyn, yes, he fires off like Dorinthia. He has some similarity, echo the Warriors of past or like the Dorinthia builds, but this is a much more setup-oriented character than Dorinthia, who you can kind of just say, Dawnblade, and now I'm going to react with all this kind of stuff. He has to have cards in Soul. He has to charge. And so as we go over these cards, you're going to see that you have to have kind of a perfect blend of pump cards that give you the plus so you can use as attack reaction, but also cards that get those cards in Soul, because that's his main target, is he has to have a stockpile there in order for him to really explode. Otherwise, he's just kind of having average turns.
I want to interject and comment on what you said about the setup, and I'm gonna kick this over to Bob for a second here. If the setup does happen and you get Boltyn to the place that you have him, I believe one time Bob was playing against Ryan in a test, and Ryan paid 2 resources for how much damage did he do to you, Bob?
So it was actually Ryan against me.
That's what I said.
And I thought, okay. It was, he paid 1 resource. He used the Fendel's Tunic resource, played a Via the Vanguard, so that's 1 card, charged twice, so then that's 3 of his 4 cards in his hand. Spoiler alert, by the way. So he charged his attack by 2. So now it's a 5 Via the Vanguard, which I did not defend. He then gave go again, played a Celestial Cataclysm for 9. For 9 because it was boosted by the Via the Vanguard. So then that's 14 damage. Gave it go again. And I think you I don't know if you swung Raiden. Yeah, Raiden for 5. So pretty decent turn. Yeah, for 19 damage for 1 resource. And had I have defended, it would have been potentially 3 more. So pretty good turn. I think we were playing Blitz, and I was just like, GG, dude. I mean, can't come back from that,
Jim,
especially in a Blitz format.
Via Vanguard into Celestial into Enlightened Strike against you, right?
Yeah, he did, yeah. So the reason...
That happened.
Yeah, I was going to say the reason I bring that up and the reason why I said that is because you guys did say he requires setup. However, once the setup has taken place, his ceiling is perhaps the highest of any character in the game. So with all that being said...
He's extremely affordable.
Yeah,
you can do so much with just minimal resources. And God forbid, if you ever had a blue to pitch and you have even more, I mean, he can do so much. We're going to get into Valiant Thrust is probably low-key one of his best cards. and it costs 1. So, I mean, if you could charge and do 2 Valiant Thrusts, I mean, that's 14 damage. Like, that's insane for just 2 resources. So.
All right, so let's not waste any more time, and let's get right into it. The first common card we're looking at here on his list is called Courageous Steel Hand. It is a light warrior attack reaction, only defends for 2, and the red version that I have pulled up here, if you've charged this turn, target attack gains +3 power. It is a 0-cost card. So, knowing that giving cards a boost, I'll ask Chris here first on this one. Chris, is Courageous Steel Hand something that you are including in your Boltyn decks? And if so, what colors and why?
Yeah, to this point, until proven otherwise, I've been keeping 3 reds in my deck. As we're going to get to later, the other common cards are basically revolving around charging the soul, which is something you definitely want to be doing almost every turn with Boltyn. So, a 0-cost attack reaction for +3 is, usually above rate. Razor Reflex costs 1 for a +3. The only other cards that, top of my head, that aren't warrior, that are like generic, that can do that sort of thing, is like a Nimbalism. But that's out in front, so they know it's already coming. Mm-hmm. So, I just think it's a great card. I really don't think there's a reason not to play it, at least so far. But the 2 block leaves a little bit to be desired, but it does everything you want to do in this deck. It allows you to go out there, and maybe they don't block to give it the +1, but then you can Steel Hand it, pump up your attack by +3, and then Boltyn is online for the attack reaction to give it go again. So I think it's a great card. Bob or Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. I mean, you play the red one, I think. I know we were kind of talking about playing the blue one just to get some more blue in your deck, but I think the red is a must include. And then if you're getting adventurous, you can maybe consider the other ones, but as of right now, they're not in my deck.
I've included all 6. And one thing of note is you don't have to, this is not targeting a card that has charge. This is targeting any card as long as you've charged. So this has the ability to pump a Command and Conquer. If you play a Take Flight, charge, and then follow up with a Command and Conquer, you can then Courageous Steel Hand to give it +3, which is in itself bananas, and then give that go again with Boltyn's ability. So that's an important thing to note. This card's very good. I like running 6, but I can see a reason to not run all 6. But yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, I would say playing against this card, it has been a pain. Knowing that, and we'll get into the archetype more when we start talking about the cards and the importance of the ability of charging as an additional cost, but it's basically something that's going to occur on almost all of your turns, which makes this live more often than not. And it's a great card to stick in your arsenal in case, like Chris said, maybe they don't defend, and then the attack in general does not get boosted. This is a great card to have in your arsenal to do some surprise damage. All right, so Courageous Steel Hand, good attack reaction card for the Light Warrior. Moving on to his next common card, we have perhaps his best card in the deck. I don't want to say that, but it's his best common card in the deck, and that is Take Flight. And Take Flight is a 1-cost. We're looking at the red pitch one here. As an additional cost to play Take Flight, you may charge your hero's soul. And if you've charged this turn, Take Flight gains go again. It is a 4 attack for the red with a 3 defense. Ryan, why is Take Flight the most important common card of his set?
Simply because you get the ability to go again, and assuming you've charged, which do not play this card unless you can guarantee a charge and pretty much a follow-up as well. But a lot of the other cards you notice say, like, if you've charged this turn, you gain this additional ability. Well, Take Flight covers that, right? You can get to your next card, so it turns on cards like Valiant Thrust. It turns on cards like Battlefield Blitz. It turns on cards like Lumina Ascension without having to burn a card from his soul. Ideally, you want to keep those in his soul for like your big turns, like your really explosive turns where, you know, you might need go again for some other ways. This takes care of that problem. So You run all 9 in Constructed. You run all 6 in Blitz. You have to have max copies of this card. There's no excuse not to. But yeah, this card is, like you said, the best common card, full stop, in the deck.
Bob or Chris, anything you want
Yeah,
to
I
add?
agree. This is Boltyn's hit and run. This is like Dorinthia needed hit and run, all the colors, run them all. Boltyn needs, like Brian said, every card of this, all 9, all 6. If you're playing Blitz, and it's just a must include.
Yeah. Chris, anything?
Dead air, baby.
Anything that these two handsome gentlemen didn't add that you'd like to
No,
add?
I totally agree. Just keep in mind that it's a 1 cost. A lot of turns when you have this in your hand, you're maybe going to consider blocking very minimally, so you're going to have some action on your turn because you're going to need minimum 3 cards, unless it's in the arsenal, to pitch, play the Take Flight, and then charge your soul. So, if you're fortunate enough to have a Fendel Spring Tunic, kind of focusing your Tunic to be used on a turn where you're taking flight can really give you some extra push to keep the extra card in your hand. To use the resource to pay for the Take Flight, you don't have to pitch the extra cards. So, very good. But as Bob and Ryan mentioned, you can do a lot in this deck with minimal resources. But sometimes that causes your deck to not have a ton of blues or extra resources left over. So, it can take a little bit of navigating. But as Ryan said, I think the most important part is it allows you to not use a card from your soul because you want to keep your soul stocked up for the middle of the game where you can do an insane turn like we talked about earlier, 15 plus damage, 20 plus damage in 1 turn.
I mean, a play that you get off pretty consistently is if you have 2 Take Flights and let's say a blue in your hand where you're able to do some stuff, or you have a Take Flight in Arsenal, play like red Take Flight, charge the first one, then you play the second Take Flight. You don't have to charge, but it still has go again. And then you can follow up with like Raiden. I know we all run Raiden. We'll get to that eventually, but you can follow up with maybe a 0 cost if you have an extra card in your hand. So you don't have to charge that second Take Flight in order to gain the go again. It automatically has it because you have already charged during the turn. So just chaining things like that, even if you don't have like a big on hit, it's such a great card.
Yeah. I would agree. I don't think there's anything that I could add that you gentlemen didn't already say. So, with that being said, Take Flight, outstanding card. Play it, use it, love it, live it. Moving on to the Express Lightning. We have a 0-costed card here. As an additional cost to play Express Lightning, you may charge your hero's soul. The red does 4 damage and can defend for 3. Is Express Lightning a key cog to the Boltyn puzzle? If so, what color and why? Let's ask Bob first. Do you play Express Lightning?
I do. I play the red, and I recently included the yellow. I mean, it's very vanilla. I mean, you're just charging. There's no if you've charged this turn effect. So I mean, it's not like the best. However, it is a 4 attack for 0, and the yellow is it's a 3 attack for 0. So I think that's always good. And then obviously, if the opponent defends, it's pumped up to potentially 5 or 4. So I think that's always good. They would have to potentially overblock, which is kind of where you want to be, and that's kind of what I've kind of found in playing this deck and crafting it. You want anything that's a 2 attack is kind of not that good in my opinion. So for sure the red, potentially the yellow, and in my version I am running the yellow.
The reason why these 0 costs are so important for Boltyn is if you've ever played it, like Chris mentioned, it's very hard to maneuver because a lot of times you are pitching a card to afford resources, and then you have to charge. So that's 2 cards in order to play 1. So you're using 3 cards. And so oftentimes you're unable to block effectively with him. And so that's his big weakness is he doesn't block as well as some other classes because he usually requires a minimum of 3 cards in order to fire off. The 0-costers, right? Let's say I have Express Lightning and 1 other card in my hand, or 2 other cards, whatever. I can full block maybe a 6 attack if I'm playing Levia or somebody else and still be able to not waste my turn, have an attack for 4, even if it's not even that great, you're still charging your soul, which is then setting up for your gigantic combo piece later. So these 0 costs are very important to run because it allows you a little bit of breathing room. If your opponent is coming at you with kind of an aggressive turn, you can block, feel comfortable about it, and then not have a wasted turn in response. So yeah, I run yellow pitch and red pitch, and I would not cut any of those.
Chris, any differences in the way you've been playing him, or very similar response?
No, I mean, when you look at the common cards and just the light warrior card pool in general, there's only so many cards that charge. You know, in the backbone of these being the take flight, the express lightning, and the two other cards we're gonna get to in a second, engulfing light and bolt of courage. So you need to have, as Ryan said, and we've been saying so far this entire cast, you need to have density of charge in your deck. You just have to have it. You have to charge every turn. If you don't, you better be doing something else, like either a soul shield or something else to get something in your soul. Because every turn you don't put something in your soul, or more importantly, charge, because putting a card in your soul is not charging, you're losing a ton of value there as far as, you know, getting to the midpoint of the game where you're going to do something crazy. So I play the red and yellow as well. And as Bob mentioned, we've kind of learned and kind of discussed this amongst ourselves off camera, but, you know, the 0s that have a 2 base power are not as good as the 3s because the opponent can block a 2 base with 1 card, obviously, and it only gets pumped up to a 3. So you can't get over that hump to push through the damage. I mean, granted, you can give it go again, but you want to sneak through that damage point if you're trying to be super aggressive. So, yeah, that's my yellow and red Express Lightning hot take.
I mean, it's pretty cool. She's doing a barrel roll. That's a good trick, and
it's like a Valkyrie.
Yeah, Valkyrie style. All right, so coming up now is Engulfing Light, and it's a very cool looking card. 0 cost. As an additional cost to play Engulfing Light, you may charge your hero's soul. There is an on-hit effect. If you've charged this turn, Engulfing Light gains. If this hits, put it into your hero's soul. So not only can you charge, but you may potentially also gain this card in your soul. And before I start with Chris this time, I just want to add to any weebs out there. Every time I look at this card, I think it is Jiraiya from Naruto because he looks just like him. And so I call this the Jiraiya card. Now, I know that's just me. I'm weird. So Chris, is Engulfing Light good? I know you're going to say yes, but I want you to tell me the colors you play and why it's great.
So definitely good. The extra clause of going into the soul as well is extra fuel for the fire. Definitely puts your opponent in a situation where they're going to want to try to block it. And the red one is going to entice them to use a piece of equipment and block with a card for sure, because they don't want that getting 2 cards in your soul. So I think this is probably one of the better ones. You know, Take Flight is the best, you know, granted it costs a resource, but out of the 0s, the Bolt of Courage, Engulfing Light, and Express Lightning, I'm going to say I think I like this one the best, just for that extra bonus of going into the soul. But as Bob, we just talked about, the red is the only one that has a base power of 3. So the yellow is a 2 base power, and the blue is a base 1 power. So because of that reason, I'm only playing the reds. But, you know, again, like I mentioned before, you need density of charge cards, so wouldn't fault you for playing more than just the 3 reds.
I think there's a world where the blue card of this is playable. I love this card. I only run the reds right now, but I think there's a world where the blues are playable, and the reason being is because if you're one, it's a blue pitch that blocks for 3, fantastic. 2, charge. 3, if your opponent wants to throw a piece of equipment at a 1 block card, you are winning. If they want to, it would create the most awkward situation for your opponent because they do not want to block that with a card out of their hand unless it's a non-attack. Even so, though, that's super bad. And if they want to throw a piece of equipment at a 1-attack card, you are golden. Mm-hmm. So I think there is a world where the blue card of this is actually very good.
It's not a bad take. I guess in making the deck, for mine at least, I'm kind of running into like difficulty, like what do I keep, what do I get rid of, and sure, like Ryan said, I'm sure there's some time to put in the blue, but for right now, it's just I don't think you have space for it. There's too many other good cards to include.
I think if you like got rid of like yellow illuminates or whatever, I think there's other things out there.
Well, I'm not getting rid of that yellow illuminate. I'll tell you that.
Well,
we'll get to that. We'll get
to
later.
That. However, I will say this: I was talking with Ryan, and I told him I think I like the blue just because of that same point. Nobody wants to block a 1 damage attack, and it has an on-hit effect, so then they're going to have to.
So why don't you just play the yellow?
Because that makes the math better for them.
Well, I'm just saying,
because then blue pitch versus yellow pitch.
Yeah, the pitch would be the reason. The pitch would be the reason. Now we can debate. We could debate what's the right call for a deck on a different cast or between the team. But in general, here the consensus is it's a good card. The on-hit effect makes it valuable, more valuable than it is, and you should definitely consider playing the reds, yellows, or blues. It's up to you as a player, but good card. I do want to move on to, after Engulfing Light, we have Cross the Line, which is a really cool looking card. I love this one. This one costs 1, however. I know we're a big fan of zeros here in Boltyn Land. As an additional cost to play Cross the Line, you may charge your hero's soul. However, the red does 5 damage with a 3-block value. So 1 for 5, and you get the charge clause. Ryan, do you play Cross the Line? Which colors and why?
Yeah, so I play the red. It's the most powerful charge card it has. So it's the highest base attack. And with the 5, it does cost a resource, which, I mean, if you're setting up, it's not that big of a deal. And the 5 damage is pretty solid, because if your opponent wants to block this, which sometimes they do, they'll throw an attack action at it, which allows you to go again and do some shenanigans. And if they don't, 5 damage is 5 damage. So I like the reds. I probably wouldn't consider the blues or the yellows of this, just because the payoff isn't necessarily there. But I don't know if Chris or Bob, you guys play the other colors there, but I do like the red. I do like it quite a bit.
So I'm on the other side of this. Not to say it's a bad card, but just in my current deck, I don't play any of these. I'm at 0 copies right now. As we just talked about a couple 0-costers, it's just having, unless it's a take flight, the 1 resource is kind of awkward sometimes. Like Ryan mentioned, you got to have a 3-card hand to play it. Granted, there's a Findel Spring Tunic. Granted, there's the Arsenal. Obviously, all these things are in consideration. But so far, I haven't found myself feeling the need to add in more charge cards based off of the amount of zeros I have. So, and as we've touched on, there is a lot of tweaking with this recipe to figure out the exact ratios of charge cards and payoff cards and buff cards and etc. that you want to have. So, but yeah, I mean, like Ryan said, I mean, 5 damage is 5 damage, and you get to charge. So, you can, if you have it in the arsenal, it does allow you to just aggressively block with 2 cards. With a card or so, and then you just get them for 5 and charge. So, it's a good way to keep some pressure on. But as of right now, I just don't have it.
Yeah, I don't blame. I don't think you have to run this one in any stretch. I think if you do, great. If you don't, I don't think it's not one of the mandatory ones.
Yeah, I only run the red, kind of for the same reason that Ryan mentioned. It's good value for 1 resource.
You don't feel bad blocking or charging with it. Like, if you don't have a tunic resource up, it's like, all right, I'll block with it, or I'll use this as the charge for like an Engulfing Light.
Yeah, I think, like you guys just said, it has value, but it's not necessarily a necessity like some of the other ones that we've come across. Moving on to a 0-costed card, though, and the last common card that we're going to talk about is Bolt of Courage. I have the red pitch pulled up here. As an additional cost to play Bolt of Courage, you may charge your hero's soul. It has an on-hit effect of, if you've charged this turn, Bolt of Courage gains, if this hits, draw a card. Bob, what colors of Bolt of Courage have you been playing? Do you enjoy it, and why?
So I've been running the red. I like running the reds in this. I had the blues and the yellows for a while, and after hearing the discussion we've had so far with the blue one, maybe that is something you can include, because I think the effect is really good. If you can get another card in your hand and have a go again, that can fuel your whole turn. And I think I played, Chris, you played the other day, we were playing off stream, and you played a Bolt of Courage, and you paired it with, what did you pair it with? You paired it with something else that gave you another card. And you ended up netting two cards from.
Plunder Run.
Yeah, it was Plunder Run. Yeah, he played a Plunder Run in this, and it was sweet. I was like, dude, you have a whole new turn pretty much. So the red is for sure an include. The yellow and the blue pitch, like we talked about, you're not doing the damage. I guess it's more so just kind of a tricky situation that you're putting your opponent in, and maybe they do have to block, and that's kind of a win for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would totally agree. As someone who plays against these cards, the on-hit ones really are annoying, especially when you specialize in a character that has all attack action cards. Any of them, you have to overblock, and sometimes you end up still taking 1 damage, and then if it has an on-hit effect, you really have to overblock, and can put you in a weird and awkward situation. So these on-hit effects are awesome because, as Chris alluded to, they're almost like a hidden reprise trigger, knowing that if you defend this, then Boltyn's ability goes live. But if you don't want that to happen, they're going to draw a card. Or they might have another way to give this go again. So, okay, maybe if I don't block, what if there's a Courageous Steel Hand in the arsenal? Or they have another attack reaction. And then he's going to draw the card and pump damage. So it puts your opponent in a situation where all the decisions being made are on their shoulders, which is seems to be a warrior theme now after these 2 warriors of ours are out. Number 1 class for putting the pressure on your opponent to decide how things are going to go. And it's very difficult. All right, so of the common cards, I would say he's got some great common cards. And our first rare that we're going to look at is Valiant Thrust. It is a 1-cost card here. I have the red pitch pulled up. If you've charged this turn, Valiant Thrust gains +3 power. Do not falter. These fiends shall die like any other beasts we've faced. If that's not a Valiant Thrust quote, I don't know what is. 4 power base attack with a 3 defense. I believe, Bob, I'm going to go to you first because you were very excited to bring up this card before. I know that...
I love this card.
I know from talking to the female in your life that you like valiantly thrusting. So tell me,
oh, jeez.
tell me all about how you enjoy playing this card. What colors are you playing and why?
Well, first of all, I hope you're not talking to my wife too much about valiantly thrusting and whatnot, but anyways, I love this card, and the reason, so again, you're never going to play this card if you haven't charged this your turn before, or earlier in the turn, period, the end. You're not going to do it. And so with that being said, you're doing 7 damage for 1 resource. That is insane value. And, not to spoil later discussions on later cards, but you're not going to find better value in a card for 1 for 7, except for I guess Celestial Empower or Celestial Cataclysm and Enlightened Strike. But we're not talking about those. Yeah, and this is just, if you can pair 2 of these together, God forbid you have a yellow pitch and you got 2 of these, 1 in hand, 1 in arsenal, you charge for a 0. I mean, that's an insane-o turn. So I'm playing only the reds. I even considered playing the yellows for a hot second, just because, I mean, again, 6 for 1 is insane, and you're not going to play it just for the 3 of the base. So I love this card, if you can't tell.
I'm with Bob for sure. It's just it's a great payoff. You know, you're definitely going to charge. You're definitely going to have hands with 0 cost charge in them. So, you know, like we mentioned before, Boltyn can do a lot with a little. He can do a lot of things with very little resources. You know, especially a hand with, you know, with your full hand of a take flight and a yellow, pitch a yellow, take flight, charge, thrust him valiantly after. I mean, that's a lot of damage. So, you know, obviously that has to be the perfect hand of cards, or maybe it's in the arsenal or whatever. But it happens. I mean, it happens a lot because there's a lot of zeros, and the payoffs. You know, the Valiant Thrust, the Battlefield Blitz, and the Majestics we'll get to. These are generally the cards that cost $1 besides take flight. So the payoffs are good, and this is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went down to 0 copies in my deck, and no, I'm not. I'm not talking. Relax, Bob. Stop crying. And the reason is because I think that, like Chris just said, it takes the same spot as Valiant or Battlefield Blitz, and I think that in my opinion, if you're gonna run one, don't run the other, because the timing and sequencing gets super awkward with having 6 copies of that in your deck. Because, yes, it does line up where you have a yellow, you play like a take flight, you charge, and then you have this card left over. But there have been so many times where I've had like Valiant Thrust, Battlefield Blitz, Engulfing Light, or something like that. Or where they just don't block, I don't give it go again, and then you're just stuck with these 2 like Valiant Thrusts. So I think that the timing and the sequencing can get awkward, especially if you have too many of these cloggy cards in your deck. That being said, I think I could probably cut the Battlefield Blitzes and go back to Valiant Thrusts because of the payoff, but then you're not going as wide. So it's just a matter of like where I just found that Battlefield Blitz is awkward, Valiant Thrust is awkward, and having 6 copies of that in your deck is like can be super awkward at times.
So not to jump too far ahead, because I know we're going to talk about like Beacon of Victory, but this is my favorite target for Beacon of Victory, because most of the times you have to have charged to use for the full effect of Beacon of Victory, and it's a 1 resource free 7 that your opponent's not even expect. Like your opponent has pretty much they will be pitching their whole hand to defend. So like maybe you don't even play Valiant Thrust at all until you have the Beacon of Victory online. And maybe that's Chris and we've talked about that, so I don't know.
I will say.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Chris.
It's just, you know, we all know this game. There's a lot of variance from hand to hand. So I mean, sometimes it's going to be, not to quote a different game, but it's going to be Magical Christmas Land sometimes, and it all lines up perfectly. And sometimes like Ryan's, I've had it before. We have an opening hand with 0 charge cards. And you literally can do nothing. Like you just have to block and cycle your hand, basically, because you can't attack with you can't pitch the swing of the weapon unless you're playing the axes. So, you know, they can happen, but you know, kind of to Bob's point, I'm playing it just for the highest ceiling on the payoff here. So,
you have to be very selective of non-charges versus charges. And like what cards can go, like Illuminate, for example. I know we brought this up twice. That goes into your soul, so there's a reason to play that beyond, you know, Valiant Thrust. So you're never playing Valiant Thrust if you have an awkward hand. You're never playing Battlefield Blitz if you have an awkward hand. Illuminate you can play. So like you have to be very selective. And for me, that was just the one that went. No other reasoning besides that.
No,
I'm not saying it's a bad card.
No, yeah. I know. I was just about to say the takeaway that I have from this is that it's nice to have a rare card at your disposal that has a high ceiling, and if going tall with this card is fitting your preferred style, then that's fantastic. And like Ryan said, we'll talk about Battlefield Blitz here in a second. If going wide fits the theme or style that you want to achieve, at least they've given you the option of having this good card that does a lot for a little. Sure, you have to meet a prerequisite, but as you guys said, the prerequisite most of the time can be met, sometimes no. But let's talk about, like, I'm living in a land where I don't have cards like these with a lot of the characters that I play. So I think it's really cool that you guys have this option. Whether or not you choose to use it's up to you, but it's a good card regardless. As we move on to the card that we were debating, if you include one then the other or whatnot, is Battlefield Blitz, which is a one-costed card. I have the red pitch pulled up. If you've charged this turn, Battlefield Blitz gains Go Again. It's a 5-power attack with 3 defense. So this card, like you guys have said, is kind of the opposite of Valiant Thrust. Instead of getting taller damage out of it, it's a 5 Go Again, potentially. So, Chris, are you Battlefield Blitzing? We know Ryan is. He kind of alluded to it last when we talked about the Valiant Thrust. Are you Battlefield Blitzing? And if so, what colors and why?
But before I answer the question, I feel like a lot of things we just said about Valiant Thrust can also be applied to this card, just as far as the potential clunkiness of it. But I'm definitely blitzing the Battlefield. I have three red and 3 red thrusts. And something that I just thought about now as we were talking about the clunkiness of it is I think I like to have 3 and 3 of these because when you have it in your hand, potentially it's an easier decision for you if that's something you want to put in your soul on the charge. Like if you have a 0-cost charge card or whatever it is, take flight, and you have a Blitz in your hand or a Valiant Thrust in your hand earlier in the game, you can really consider to just use that as the charge fodder because you know later in the game you can find one, or as Bob mentioned, you can search for it with the Beacon of Victory. So with having Beacon of Victory, it's kind of like you're almost playing 6 copies of any card you want in your deck, so to speak. So I just like to have the density of it because I guess that's kind of contradicting what I said earlier about the clunkiness of the hands, but that thought about just having some easier either block fodder or soul fodder is definitely something that you kind of get as you play more with the deck to figure out which cards are more expendable.
Mm-hmm.
As the one or the other guy, not saying this is the correct play by any stretch, obviously, but to decrease the clunkiness that Chris was just talking about, if you math it up, right, and the 3 of us are all on Raiden, again, we'll talk about Raiden, and we'll sing from its praises from the tallest mountain. But you battle. Let's say you have the turn where you can charge and play one of these 2 cards, right? You play charge card, Valiant Thrust for 7, turns over, right? Or if you want to give it Go Again, now you're burning a soul card. Charge Battlefield Blitz for 5, Go Again, follow up with Raiden for 3. That's 8 now. You've already surpassed the 7, and you're not burning a card from soul in order to give it Go Again. So yes, the ceiling is there, but you're still doing 8 damage with Battlefield Blitz into Raiden, plus whatever you charged, and you're still keeping your soul then for the later combo. So that, in my head, decrease clunkiness, lead to a better math scenario, and set yourself up late game for keeping a card in soul. That's just where I'm at.
That's a valid point. Bob, do you have any follow-up?
No, I mean, I run the Reds. I like having both, Battlefield Blitz and the Valiant Thrust, so that's just me. Yeah. All good points all around, though.
No, I do think that, hearing the discussion, I think an argument can be made for including all both in your deck, or, like you said, if you want to be more conscious of keeping cards in your soul, like Ryan said, this might be a better option because then you don't have to burn you don't have to give Valiant Thrust Go Again to then swing Raiden. This already gives you Go Again, which is a valid point. So with that being said, we hope that
Thrust is a good card. If you're watching this,
no, we know that. Like I said, I was going to just say, I hope that you, the viewer, know that, like, obviously our discussions just lead to thought nuggets that we think of that sometimes we play through and then we have to feel, and you don't really know those things until you have multiple reps. But on the surface, these two rare cards that we've talked about, these back-to-back here, offer a lot of value, and I think are very good. So,
before we move on, Jim, if I could just say something.
Absolutely.
Regardless if you played the Blitz or if you wanted to thrust valiantly like Bob, Solana shall never succumb to the shadows.
Oh, never.
That's right. We stay there. we stay light.
That's right.
Get on to it, Jim. Give it to us.
I don't like that quote at all. But now,
give the people. We know it's coming next. Give
it to the most broken rare card in the game. This card is not. This card is coming from someone who plays against these clowns all the time. The fact that this is a rare and the value for 1 cost, and it is a yellow pitch. I sometimes am in my shadows having dreams of, Leviathan-like dreams, and I dream of a card like this existing for myself. But as it does not, I can only dream and hope. So if you're wondering, I'm talking about V of the Vanguard. It is a 1-cost card that is a yellow pitch. It is a Boltyn specialization. As an additional cost to play V of the Vanguard, you may charge your hero's soul any number of times. That's pretty key, any number of times. Attacks you control on this combat chain gain +1 power for each light card you've charged this way. So, I'm just going to reiterate this. It's attacks you control on this combat chain. So as long as you do not break the chain by playing a non-attack action card or using an action on like an equipment or something, every attack will be buffed by the amount of cards that you've charged this turn, which means light cards, sure, which means it can buff a lot of already strong cards in the game, which is crazy because then if you additionally think about it, it makes Boltyn's ability live for the entire chain of attacks. So this card does so much for 1 damage or for 1 resource cost, and really allows him to have a bananas turn. I guess we'll kick it over to Ryan, who played this earlier against me today, and I didn't have fun, but it was cool to watch happen. Ryan, why is Via the Vanguard one of the more powerful rares in Flesh and Blood?
I'm comfortable saying that given proper setup, like if you have the Boltyn setup where you have a decent amount of cards in Soul and you've kind of played around this card, I think this is the best card in the game.
Yeah, it's insane.
I'm saying above Command and Conquer. I'm saying not Warrior card. I'm saying given proper setup, this is the best card in the game today. Because of the point that you just said. It pumps the entire chain, so you have the ability to not only go wide, but now you can go wide stronger than Katsu ever could on full combo, right? Like, if you charge twice, which is, I would say, a decent shooting point. Like, you have a Tunic resource when this card's in your arsenal, you can comfortably charge twice with some other cards in your hand, and we talked about it at the beginning. Right? Via the Vanguard for 5, go again. Celestial Cataclysm for 9, go again. Raiden for 5. That's a very basic 3. You can go crazier than that, and that is 9, 5, 5. That's 19, and I've gotten that off 3 times, so that's not an uncommon thing. This card is bananas. It's broken. Don't break the chain. You cannot combo this with his Majestic Lumina. We'll get to Lumina. So for those of you that are playing, Lumina breaks this chain. So keep that in mind. So you want to play V on a separate turn that you're playing Lumina. But yeah, this card is.
It's bananas. I told you I have dreams. I have
incredible.
Dreams of a card like this.
There's no other word for it besides busted. And it's busted.
I feel like in order to get, and correct me if I'm wrong, everybody here, in order to get this type of value of not only buffing this card itself, but buffing future cards to be played, like, it would. I know you have to charge, and I know they have to be light cards, but for one resource to get that value, like Ryan said, it is extremely above curve.
These cards don't exist.
It doesn't exist in this
form.
game. In this game, it does not exist in any other form. Chris, anything you want to add about this outstanding card?
First, I will say, if you are, not fortunate enough to have owned or seen a foil version of this, make sure you get one, because that shiny tip is just right in your face at all times, ready to go. But I will also say, this card, we've been talking about setting up. We've also been talking about going wide and using the soul for payoff cards. This card via the Vanguard is a reason for you to really consider being stingy with your soul, and also being stingy with your Fendal Spring Tunic resource when you get to 3. If you don't have the Spring Tunic, I recommend using the Heart and Cross Strap to give you the extra resource on that turn, because generally the way you really go crazy with this is if you have it in your hand, you feel like you're in a decent spot. If you arsenal it, draw up to 4, and then hopefully they don't command and conquer you, and then you just don't block, and then you just go bananas on the next turn. But you need that Tunic resource or the extra resource to have a full hand of 4.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it gets, because you're only going to have, after the 2 charge into the soul, you're going to have 2 cards left in your hand to still work with. But you still want that soul. You need your soul also charged up to basically minimum 3, probably 4 to feel safe. Because you want to use Boltyn's attack reaction to give all the cards a go again. So you can't go crazy with this if you only have 1 or 2 cards in your soul. Granted, you are going to put 2 more in at the time you play. But, earlier in the game, there are some scenarios where, if your opponent's attacking you with some pretty decent attacks, sometimes something I do, and I'm sure you guys do too, is block with 2 cards from your hand and then keep a 0 charge. And you just charge, attack, charge, and then pass. So just, don't always go nuts with your soul, because you're going to keep in the back of your mind that you're playing with your soul to get to the via the Vanguard turn.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you can...
I will say... No, it's okay. I was going to give you a second to crack open your beer. No, I was going to say, this card, we've already established it. It's great. We don't need to go any further. But I think this card is, like Chris said, if your opponent's coming at you, just take the damage. As long as you're not going to die, just take the damage, because this can pull you out of a hole better than any other card in the game. You can swing any game back in your favor as long as you keep all of your cards. You need all 4 and potentially your arsenal to get maximum effect, and you can open a game wide up, or open a game wide open, open it, I don't know. But yeah, you can swing any game back in your favor, and I've done it many times.
316, open a can on them, and there's after they hit you with the via the Vanguard stunner, your soul, their soul will be uplifted, and your soul will be crushed.
The thing about, I'm sorry, Jim.
No, go for it.
The thing about his specializations, this and Lumina, they replace themselves and play into his ability better than any of the other cards. Via the Vanguard, right? You charge twice. That's 2 go agains on that chain that you're going to do, right? And that's not even accounting for other cards that you've already built up in your soul. Lumina, on hit with your weapon, you can charge again or reveal the top card and put it in your soul again. So his specializations are his own engine as well, which is also crazy. You would think very much like Cataclysm, where you're playing this insanely powerful thing, but you're going to drain your soul in order to do it. These are the exact opposite. They get your engine going in order to spend at the same time. So you're really not taking a loss there.
Yes, indeed. And indeed it is outstanding. I complain about this card all the time. Not in a negative way. It's outstanding. I complain that I don't have something like it in my bad guys. All right, moving on. So, we're going to talk about his 3 Majestic cards. The first one on here is Lumina Ascension. which is a really cool looking card, even though he kind of looks like really purple in this card.
Thanos.
Yeah, he looks like, apparently he's like, yeah, turning a little perp here. It's on the syrup. Illumina Ascension, 0 cost. Yellow pitch. Boltyn specialization until the end of turn. Weapons you control gain +1 power, and if this hits, reveal the top card of your deck. If it is a light card, put it into your hero's soul and gain a health. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your deck. Bottom clause, if there's already not enough text on here. If you've charged this turn, you may attack an additional time with each weapon you control. Go again, blocks for 3, Majestic Dog here. So, geez, Bob, Lumina Ascension, is it the sauce that makes the pasta taste amazing, or is it just the little seasoning on top? Which one is this? Is this like the meat? Is it the sauce? Is it the seasoning? How important is it?
I think, it's the meat and the whole pasta. It's definitely critical to, and I think we've already talked about, we run Raiden. Sure, if you ran the axes, it's probably even better because you could attack.
Well, no, because then you have to pay more money.
We've got them resources.
You need a lot of resources. I'm just saying. You need the resources, but but no, this card's incredible. And like Ryan alluded to just now, like, you're helping your cause, you're increasing your health, you had to have already charged, obviously, to get the maximal effect. And I mean, you're already buffing your attacks, so you can just like keep churning them out. Like, you don't need to have your opponent defend in order for it to be buffed. You're already boosting the base attack. So it's phenomenal. I mean, hopefully everyone can get 3 of these, and you're going to include all 3.
Yeah, Bob hit it. Just something to keep in mind is with the clause, when the weapon hits, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a light card, put it into your hero's soul and gain a health. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your deck. So just keep in mind if you're building the deck, keep in mind the number of light cards you have, because that is going to matter. The more generics you put in, gradually that makes the Lumina worse. Not that it's like the biggest deal, but you want to hit that. You want to put it in your soul and you want to gain a health. So just something else to kind of keep in mind, a little something that I think maybe was a little overlooked by me, at least in the beginning stages of using the card, because I definitely flipped over a few generics early on with this, and you're thinking, well, I don't want that to happen again. So, but yeah, phenomenal card. And kind of like the Via the Vanguard, this is a turn where you're going crazy. It's going to be a turn where you're maybe going to take some damage on your opponent's turn. Maybe you have this in the arsenal or something else tucked away, and then you're going to go crazy on your turn.
Don't play this unless you can get every clause. Like, if you don't charge, don't play this. You want to be able to, especially if you're running Raiden, where you can just zero attack, which should be illegal. But yeah, don't do that unless you get both clauses off. And just the reminder text, it does not pair with Via the Vanguard because you are technically breaking the chain because it's a non-attack action. So just keep that in mind as well. Sorry for the earthquake here. Yeah, just phenomenal card. I was talking to Jim earlier after our games. Boltyn, as the combo deck, has 2 major combos, right? And depending on the cards you draw during that combo will determine how bananas said combo is. The first one is any Via of the Vanguard turn. If you can pair that with Cataclysm, if you can pair that with Enlightened Strike, even Command and Conquer, those are just a crazy string of attacks in a row. Lumina is like number 2. It's probably a little bit less ceiling than your Via of the Vanguard turn, but being able to attack with Raiden, follow up with Raiden, and then if you run Twinning Blades, you Twinning Blade that again, this thing lasts the whole turn. So you can swing with Raiden, give it a go again, swing with Raiden, give it a go again, Twinning Blade, swing with Raiden for a 3rd time, and then that just gets out of hand. So yeah, think of that in terms of combo. Don't just use it to use it. Really set yourself up so you can have maximum effect.
to kind of piggyback off of what Chris mentioned earlier, and I'm going to ask you two guys. I know we'll share our deck lists in the video comments and whatnot, but how many non-light cards are you running? I'm running, Command and Conquer, Enlightened Strike, Razor Reflex, and Remembrance. One Remembrance. What are you guys? Are you guys running anything else or any other generics? Because like Chris said, like I've definitely flipped over, and it's not a light card, and it's such a feel bad. But so that's why I tried to eliminate as much as I could.
And then my side deck is Twinning Blades 2, Energy Potions 2, and Plunder Run 3.
I have 10 in the main, but I only play 60 cards. I know you guys probably play more than 60 cards most of the time, so the ratio does matter too. If you're playing more than 60, you can put a couple more generics in because the percentage will be about the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, moving on from Lumina Ascension, because I don't want to look at it another second longer than I have to. Oh my god, the next card I pull up is just as annoying, if not possibly more. However, that's only my perspective, and I am the minority here. And I'm talking, of course, about another zero-cost yellow pitch card called Beacon of Victory. It is a light warrior attack reaction, defends for 3. As an additional cost to play Beacon of Victory, banish X cards from your hero's soul. X can't be 0. Target attack gains plus X damage. Oh, there's even more text yet again. If you've charged this turn, search your deck for an action card with cost X or less. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. Chris, is there a better attack reaction in the game, or is Beacon of Victory the best? And before you tell me yes, just tell me your thoughts on it and why.
I mean, I've basically forgotten that any other ARs even exist. Really. I mean, it's just so good. Being able to search for another card is insane. That's so good. In Flesh and Blood, we don't have a ton of those types of effects. The tutor search effect, search your deck for a card. And, I mean, it's really hard to play around because, being able to buff it plus X, most of the time when I use it, I only usually buff for 1. And then you can search for basically any card in your deck at that point. And, buffing the attack obviously turns on Raiden's attack reaction to be live with the +1 power. So, yeah, it's phenomenal. Phenomenal card.
Dude, and it's not even attack action. Like, you can search for Lumina. Like, if you have another card. And, like, the other busted part about this is it's not weapon. It's not, like, if you play Command and Conquer, I always go back to that card because busted. It's the fact that you should never be able to pump Command and Conquer ever. But you play Command and Conquer and Beacon of Victory to give this +1. Not only is that now a 7, you can then give it go again, and you're searching if you have charged.
Yeah, that's
crazy.
Insane.
Crazy ass card.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, I think Bob mentioned this earlier. The thing that this is kind of hinting at something we're going to talk about later with Celestial Cataclysm, but what I've been doing lately is, when you have the extra money, you search for the thrust, and that's kind of the capper at the end of the chain. For me, that's like the highest payoff. Or the Blitz, if you're playing the Blitz, similar gist, obviously.
Or,
but go ahead, Jim.
No, I was going to say, or like a Cataclysm, another big dog. Like you're saying, go search for like the big dog, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't search for an Engulfing Light.
Yeah. But yeah, incredible.
Unless it's game.
So to Chris's point, yeah. To Chris's point, I think, we've kind of learned that you want to keep as much soul in your... Like, you want to keep the soul if you can. And the only downside of Cataclysm, unless it's game, is that you're taking away potential future go-agains. And so if you have the ability to search for something, and you have a resource, hopefully you can just keep the soul where it's at and still get 7 from the
my
Valiant
rule of
Thrust.
thumb with Cataclysm,
I think that's what Chris is going for.
I won't play it unless I have 5 soul. Because I'm not completely... There's rare occasions where I'll play it with 4, but usually I go for the 4 or 5 just because you don't want to reset. Prism I think is a little bit more flexible. You can afford to reset with her, but with Boltyn he needs them there, so I think 4 or 5 is a good target for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this card is insane. I know all three of you like it. I don't want to sound like the negative Nancy that I am, but it's hard to play against this card. It offers so much value for these three gentlemen that that I constantly play against. So even though I seem down on it, I'm only down on it because it's outstanding, and it frustrates me. So as a person who plays against it, there's not an attack reaction that I'm more scared of right now than this card can swing an entire game. Especially if this happens late game, you might as well just go cry to your mamas because it's game over.
I feel like people were like down on this card when it first came out too. Like there were a couple channels that were saying, I'm not gonna toss shade, but they're like, oh, this card's overrated. Like, what kind of AR is this? And now, I think now people are starting to appreciate just how broken it could be.
Yeah, you gotta definitely like get it on the table and feel the strength. And I think like when I first read it too, I was like, oh, I don't care about this. But once you realize how this can combo off, and that's when it becomes a problem. So, all right.
Just think about this real quick.
Oh, we got
Everybody,
two.
Whoa.
Bob then
Chris.
Bob then Chris.
Okay, I was just gonna compare it because I know we talked about attack reactions in the game and like searching for your cards, and I just want to reference Dorinthia really quick and how this is way better than Singing Steelblade. Singing Steelblade costs 1, only pumps your weapon attack by 1, and you can only search for, and it's got a reprise that you can only search for an attack reaction. So like this is just, it's 0 cost. You can pump it however much as you want, and you can search for, like Ryan said, you can search for whatever you want. So comparing it to the previous probably best attack or one of the best attack reactions, this just it's just leaps and bounds better.
What I was going to say was, that's a good point, Bob. What I was going to say was the last part of the beacon where it says, if you've charged this turn, search your deck for an action card with cost X or less, put it into your hand, or reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your... So something that I've been thinking about more often in my recent games after playing more with Boltyn is in the early stages of the game where you're drawing these powerful combo pieces like V of the Vanguard or Lumina Ascension. Since you have Beacon of Victory in your deck, it doesn't feel as bad for you to have to pitch those cards to the bottom, because at some point in the game, you're going to get to search your deck and then shuffle. So once your deck is a lot smaller, all those pieces now are going to be spread back out in your deck, and you're going to find them. So, don't feel bad if you have to think about that or pitch those good pieces to the bottom, because they're going to come back up eventually after you beacon and search and shuffle.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like, it doesn't even say light card. Like, you can find an Enlightened Strike. Like, which is crazy. Like, it's... Yeah. What a crazy card.
Good point. Don't sleep on the shuffle. The shuffling is really important. And, yeah, what a crazy card indeed. So, geez, Louise, can we go even crazier here? Is this going to be 3 for 3 on Majestics? We got Bolting Blade, another yellow card. Oh my God, does it cost 4? This must be broken. The last one's cost 0. Let's see what this does. Bolting Blade, he's charging it up over his head. Bolting Blade costs 2 resources less for each time you've charged this turn. 7 attack, light warrior, attack, defense for 3. Bolting Blade, Ryan, comes in 1 color only. Steep cost there, but can be decreased. Is it good, and are you playing it?
This is the most uncuttable, so you have to run it. Bad, potentially amazing card in the game. Like, I'm running all 3. You have to run all 3. If you run against Prism, this is one of the ways to get rid of Phantasm or to trigger Phantasm is with Bolting Blade. I have played probably 15 games with Boltyn in combined CC and Blitz, like maybe 15, 20-ish. Have ran in Blitz, I've ran 2 copies every single game. In CC, I've ran 3 copies every single game. I have played this card 0 times.
No, you did it to me this morning.
Oh, I did not Bolting Blade you this morning.
Oh.
I pitched it. I cataclysmed you. I have never hit... Bolting Blade has never hit the table for me, ever. I know why it's good. I can see why it's good, even if you're paying 2 costs at the end of a turn. If you have like leftover resources, whatever it is, and if you have it during your V of the Vanguard turn and you charge twice, then yeah, you get to play this for 0 for 7, which is crazy.
No, for 9.
Oh yeah, 0 for 9, even more insane. So yes, this card can be bananas. It does not feel bad. Like the way that I've always looked at this card now that I've realized that it's situational and that I rarely play it. You never hurt, or it never hurts to block with it. You love pitching it. You love charging with it. It's a Lumina Ascension. It'll trigger Lumina because it's a light card. So it basically hits all of your boxes. You're not going to play this in every game. This is not one of the most important cards in your deck. But I think saying all of those negative things, you have to run all 3 of them.
Bob, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, man. Chris and I talked a lot about this card. And I think you alluded to, the perfect scenario of playing a via the Vanguard, charging twice, having this in your arsenal, playing it for free, and like you're all happy. But there are a lot of things, a lot of stars need to align for that to happen. And sure, if you pull it off, great. But like you said too, I've never played this card. I agree that it does hit all the boxes. I don't know if I'm playing it though. And I think if you can play, like comparing it back to thrusting valiantly, I mean you're doing 7 there for 1 resource. Comparing it to, I mean you're not going to pay the 4 ever to play this. So we'll just say it's a 7 for 2.
I think if you're going,
I don't know. I don't know if it's ever really.
This is not what this podcast is about, but that's like kind of where my mindset is right now. If you're going to a tournament and you're not prepping for Prism with this card,
For sure.
So I was going to say,
yeah.
This is a sideboard card for sure. But if you're like maybe not playing Prism, are you going to include this in your deck?
Against Jim, like playing against Levia, then maybe not.
Yeah.
But like if you're going, if you're building your deck with Boltyn, I think you have to put this card in there because there's just not that many 7s that are afforded to you.
I agree. I'm with you on that. So I think it's definitely an awkward. Well, I don't want to say awkward because that makes it sound like it's bad. It's just like.
No, dude,
like
they
you
don't
said,
make this
you're going to probably
cards.
include this in your deck if you do. Well, no, I'm just saying you're not going to probably play the card for what it's intended to be played for. You're going to block for it. You're going to block with it. You're going to pitch it to pay for stuff, or you're going to charge your soul with it.
Can I, Chris, before we kick it to you, I recently, Chris, you referred me to like a Team Covenant recent stream. And they said they said something that kind of struck me that Ryan just said, is he was talking about like building a character and you look for like the 4 pillars of what a card represents in your deck. Like, does it pitch for the value you need? Does it block? Does it provide a high upside? And like, does it check all your boxes? So I agree with both of you guys. Like, right, like this card doesn't necessarily need to be played, but I also agree with Ryan that like. It is going to check all your boxes, especially in a tournament style where Prism is a thing. So, like, at least they provide you with this card that fits the archetype, even if it gets cut or even if you add it, it fits in his archetype really well. Chris, go ahead.
So, outside of the context of Prism, for the 7 block to blow up the Phantasm, I'm convinced this card is pretty bad. I really don't think this card is good. At 90% of the time, it's going to be a 2-cost 7 attack. 10% of the time,
maybe 99%.
Or even less than that, considering Ryan has a lot of games, I have a lot of games, Bob has a lot of games. We've probably played it combined less than 2 or 3 times out of everybody. So And I don't really, I don't know. I don't have it in my main 60. I definitely have it in the sideboard for Prism. But even then, as a 7, I would maybe consider playing a generic 6 instead. I don't know. I just think it's bad. Like, it's only good with via the Vanguard, as Ryan alluded to, when you could double charge, or if you have a hand of 2 0 charges in your hand and Bolting Blade in the arsenal, or some sort of combination of that, to where you get the double charge. But I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I've been very underwhelmed with this card the more I had in my deck, and currently I'm playing 0.
Yeah, you don't need it in the main deck, for sure. The only reason why you have to run it against Prism is because of those triumphs with the -1s. You need the 7. Like, 6s, the generic 6s aren't good enough against her, because if she triumphs you and goes on a chain and you just have a 6, it's not there. So, like, having the Cataclysms and the Bolting Blades for that extra kind of padding, I think is a little bit just necessary, I think. But yeah, I agree. This card kind of, that's what I said, it kind of sucks. It's kind of good. It's super awkward, and I've never played it. So, but it's still in my deck. It's weird.
No,
it's a good bad card.
I'm gonna relate this to my specialization. That's like unplayable compared to your specialization where you just talked about. It fits the archetype that I need and checks a lot of the boxes, but I'm never playing this card. It's never getting played. It's just not gonna happen. However, you guys, like you said, unless the stars align, it's not happening. So at least it fits your archetype, right? Like, on the worst day, you add it against Prism in it, and it fits what you're trying to do. But Bolting Blade, interesting conversation there around Bolting Blade. And then finally, perhaps the MVP of the entire deck, and perhaps one of the best weapons we've seen in a long time, is Raiden Duskbane. Beautiful looking sword. A once per turn action for 0 attack. If you charge this turn, Raiden gains +3 power. So if you have charged, which is a very common occurrence, Raiden becomes a 0-costed 3 attack. That is some cray value. That is insane. Ryan, you were the first to go down the Raiden route, so I'm gonna kick this to you first. You pulled a Raiden, it made you want to do it, you gave it a shot, and you instantly realized its potential. Why is Raiden Duskbane, and be nice when you say this, the only option for Boltyn?
In short, is it the only option? I'm sure you can build a deck around the Axes and around the Centauri Sabers, but then at that point, run Dorinthia, run Kasai if you're playing Blitz. Bolton's big thing is charging, right? We talked about it before. You play the charge card. If it's a 1 cost, you have to pay for that with another resource, usually a card. You have to charge. So that's 3 cards out of your hand already that are gone, right? So he's got a problem where he struggles with card very not dissimilar to Rhinar, where he has to have additional resources in his hand to discard so he can get off those extra pays. Raiden fixes so much math. I can play a card, I can charge a card, and I can follow that up with a 0-cost attack. And out of those bananas turns that involve like Lumina Ascension, you can automatically give Raiden go again because it's a +3. It's not a base 3. His base is 0.
Yeah.
So it's automatic go again fodder with Bolton's ability, which is crazy. There's 2 other things that I love about Raiden that don't even have anything to do with kind of the main mechanic. Number 1 is, if you're against Prism, if you just swing a 0-cost Raiden against one of her auras, it automatically gets destroyed, okay? The auras, the Spectra keyword, you do not have to have an attack value in order to do that. They just have to be the target of an attack. That's it. Okay? So you can blow them up without really wasting a turn, which is amazing. The second thing, and more sneaky, you can swing. If you block with some cards, right, you can swing with Raiden for 0, even if you have like a Razor Reflex that's waiting. You can then give it +3. So there are sneaky ways that you can end the game that puts your opponent in some terrible spots where they're going to be forced to block a 0 attack. So I just think going back to like the main point, the resource, or not having to pay a resource allows you to use up all 4 cards in your hand for blocking, charging, and attacking, and then having a follow-up attack for 0 resources.
Ryan, I totally agree. You know, in the beginning of the cast, I mentioned that we're kind of looking at all these cards through the lens of Classic Constructed and Blitz. I think it's also fair to say we're looking at these cards through the lens of Raiden Duskbane because
True,
we're talking a lot about resource curve, and earlier way back we were talking about blues versus reds and yellows. I look at the DB right now. The average cost of the cards in my deck is 0.48. So it's basically an entire different deck if you don't have Raiden. If you have the axes, you have to put blues in, and a lot of them. So it definitely skews the conversation and definitely changes the deck to be way better, in my opinion. And obviously, you feel the same way.
Spill Blood was like the card, I think, that as soon as it was spoiled, everyone was like salivating, like, oh my god, this guy and axes are going. It's going to be the most broken deck. Spill Blood is the most broken card that I've ever seen. And then playing him and realizing the charge mechanic and what that entailed, Spill Blood kind of is not playable with the way that you're not charging if you're playing a Spill Blood axe deck. And so at that point, stop playing Boltyn.
Yeah, that's.
If you're
I think you're spot on there, right? Like, when I was even building it just for Blitz, just to have some reference, I went down the axe route, and I know Bob can talk about this too. You went straight for the Duskbane, and you kind of opened the pathway for us to see the difference, because then when I did the axes, I realized really quick that if you're not utilizing the charge mechanic, then why are you even playing this character? Which it sucks to say that you need this Majestic Sword to really see his highest potential, but it's true. It unlocks his highest potential, and the axes feel like, hey, here's some weapons you can use with him if you don't have this Raiden Duskbane. But the drastic difference in this character's ceiling between this weapon and the 2 token weapons that they give him is like a night and day character. One seems barely playable, and at that case you just run a different character, and this one makes him like outstandingly great. So Bob, you went down the axe route. You saw nothing that I didn't see either, right?
No, I mean, if I pulled a Raiden, I would probably have loved to have played that earlier too. But yeah, I did the axe experiment, and it's such a feel bad to, you play a card. Let's say you're not boosting your attack at all. You somehow get to attack with one of the hatchets, and they're like, okay, I'll take 2, and then your turn's over. Like, you're not, unless you have an attack reaction, they're fine taking 2. And then at that point, like, it would maybe be a little bit more of a decision if it was a 3 base. But these little hatchets, I mean, they're taking 2 and they don't care. Yeah. And then they're shutting down your turn. So yeah, they feel, and they cost $1. So like, you need to have the builds we talked about are going to be totally different. You need blues, and yeah, you might as well just play Dorinthia at that point. Now Dorinthia axes might be a thing. I don't know. I know we've kind of like flirted with that option a little bit, but I mean, that's maybe another discussion for another day.
His downside, right? The Boltyn downside of the charge mechanic There's no other weapon. Like we were talking the Luminaris, right? That changes Prism in such a way where you're no longer relying on blues. Now all of a sudden you just have yellows and it's go again, go again, go again, go again. That's huge. Raiden is a very similar card in terms of just what it affords him for deck building purposes. You know, you can have just your most expensive card in your deck, if you built it a certain way, could be a 1 cost. Yeah. It could be V of the Vanguard, might be, if you don't have Command and Conquers, if you don't want to play Bolting Blade, your most expensive card in the deck could be a 1 cost V of the Vanguard, and you could be competitive with that build. Because Raiden.
I would agree. I don't want to linger on Raiden because the 4 of us have all said everything that there is to say about it. Even if you don't have a copy of this, I would advise you to just one time build it like you did and proxy this sword. Because I think you need to feel the difference in order to truly understand. If you've been out there playing Boltyn Axes and you don't have a Raiden, don't just listen to this and be like, well, I don't have a Raiden, so I'm not going to try this. Like, proxy this and pretend like you had a Raiden, because that's how drastically different the character feels.
Limited Raidens are cheap. Buy one. Like,
yeah,
if you, I want to say it's like $10, honestly. Buy a Raiden.
Okay, so
I'm looking right now. They're 11.24 on TCG Player.
Buy one now.
Oh yeah, that's nothing. All right, so as
We're not sponsored by TCG, by the way.
Well, it could be someday. Who knows?
It's gonna get bleeped out. It's gonna get bleeped out.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go Chris first, then Bob, then Ryan. Chris, give me one light card. Could be a deep cut, could be an obvious one that you feel is a great addition in any Boltyn deck.
Oh, well, I guess I'll kind of meet you in the middle. I'm going to mention a card called Seek Enlightenment, which I'm not completely sold on one way or the other yet, but Seek Enlightenment, I'm not sure if you have it pulled up there or not, but the red one, gotcha. The red one is a 1-coster, and it's an action, and it says, the next attack action card you play this turn gains +3 power, and put it into your hero's soul. Go again. So currently I'm playing 3 of the reds in my deck. It's something I want to keep trying. It is a bit awkward because it costs $1. So, you know, as we've been mentioning throughout the entire cast, Boltyn can do a lot with not a lot of money. But sometimes having that extra $1, you know, if you have a Take Flight in your hand and a Seek Enlightenment, you need to have a yellow. And sometimes you don't always have a yellow. This with all the reds in this deck, at least the way I build it. But the upside of putting it into your hero's soul, you know, I've been trying to just tinker with this card, and unfortunately, a lot of the times when I do play it, all that happens is the opponent is now more incentivized to block it out. So it kind of feels like a waste sometimes, but at the same time, you're also forcing your opponent to make a decision. So I still want to keep playing with it, but I'm not 100% convinced it belongs. But I do really like cards that pump these 0-cost charge cards like the Seek Enlightenment, Plunder Run, you know, stuff like I'm playing Captain's Call right now just to try it out. You know, stuff like Nimbalism. So we'll see.
Well, imagine, and here's what I'll say, because you've played this against me. We earlier in this cast said the importance of the on-hit clauses, putting your opponent into an awkward spot. So this is going to check 2 boxes here. It's going to check the box of buffing an attack to make Boltyn's attack reaction ability live. And it's also going to check the box of refreshing, or it's not charging, but at least refreshing your soul. So it's, it defends for 2, but at least it defends. So like, this checks enough boxes to where if you played this on Bolt of Courage, right? That's the one that says if he hits draw a card.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get to draw a card and put it into your soul. Yee! Like, come on, that's like really good. So, I can definitely see the value that you see in this card, and I think it definitely deserves testing from yourself and the rest of the group. So
yeah, just to close on your statement there, I used to play the yellows just because I wanted to see it to kind of test it more. I wanted to have 6 copies of it so I could see how it worked. And I will say the yellow is not good enough because the red being a plus
it's just plus 2.
Yeah, it's plus 2.
Yeah.
So when you hit a 3 base attack, which there's a lot of those in this deck that are 3 base, when you get it to a 6, that's the magic number, because then if they still double block from their hand, it's going to go to a 7 most likely. And you can maybe push that extra damage through to get the on-hit effect. But if you play a plus 2, the yellow version, onto a 3, it doesn't matter. They can still double block it and they're clean and nothing gets through. So that's why I cut the yellow.
It's like playing the blue Engulfing Light versus the yellow, because you don't want to make their math like perfect. You want to make it awkward for them.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point, Chris.
All right, it's Bob. Chris, that was a good one. Throwing me a deep cut early. I liked it. Bob, give me a light card that you think deserves mentioning. It can be as an obvious one, a deep cut, or anything in between.
I too like Seek Enlightenment, but the card that I'll choose is Illuminate. 0 cost. The red one is a 4 damage, and if it hits, it puts it into your soul, which, like we've already talked about ad nauseum. Putting stuff in your soul is a good thing. So the red, I definitely am including the red because, if they block, it's now a 5. You're punching some damage through. I'm actually including the yellow as well because it's a 0 for 3. Sure, but I mean, this is probably like, you're not gonna like lead off. You're gonna this is kind of like after you've charged, you put, this can be the 4th card in your hand.
It could come after
something
a take
to pay
flight.
for like a bolting blade or maybe, like a take flight. You pitch a red, play take flight, charge, and then hey, you have an Illuminate in your hand to just like kind of chuck out there, and then it goes into your soul. Then maybe you swing Raiden. That's a decent turn, all for 1 resource. So I mean, that's kind of why I like the red and the yellow, because the yellow, if you, assuming you've charged, it's now a 4. So you'll at least get 1 piece of damage through, unless they overblock. So
I think my favorite
I'm a big fan of
utilization
Illuminate.
of this card, and I've only played it in 2 games because you guys sent that deck list, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to try that. My favorite utilization fixes one of Boltyn's problems, and that's the blocking, right? If Boltyn's really bad at blocking, so I don't look at this card like Bob said, where he likes to use it after a charge, and now it can get buffed. I like looking at my hand, seeing maybe a red Illuminate. I also run the yellows too right now. And let's say I'm getting like threatened with a big attack. I feel more comfortable blocking out. If I'm missing some of those big combos, I can block now comfortably with 3 cards and not feel that my turn is wasted by playing this red Illuminate on my turn, right? 0 for 4, it's a 4 attack, it's not doing anything, I'm not having a follow-up, but if it hits, it goes into my soul, and my opponent doesn't necessarily want it. So I think that's my favorite utilization about this, is that it gives me kind of a break, if you will. I don't feel like I'm wasting my turn by playing like a card like, Snatch is another one where I've seen a lot of Boltyn players play. That only blocks for 2, Illuminate blocks for 3. And on hit, I draw a card, my turn's still over. This one filters and gives like the Boltyn kind of, it plays into the Boltyn game plan. So, yeah. I agree, I love Illuminate.
This thing checks so many of your, as an outsider, checks so many of your boxes that you guys have pre-constructed during this cast. A 0, yes. Blocks, yes. Has an on-hit effect, yes. Is a light card, yes. It just checks too many of his boxes to not consider playing this card with him.
Has a base attack over 3.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's another kind of critical thing.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right, Ryan, you can continue on the deep cut, because obviously I'll pull up the 2 big doggers regardless, and we don't even have
I'm not going with Cataclysm. I am going with one of the big doggers though.
All right, hit me with it.
Soul Shield.
Okay.
Soul Shield is the best defense reaction in the game. Hard stop, full stop, whatever you want to call it.
It really is.
It is. It's the best defense reaction in the game, and I think it is even better with Boltyn because, like I just said, his problem is blocking, and if you have a card that blocks for 6, it costs a yellow out of your hand, so you can still pitch, play, and charge on your turn if this is coming from your hand. It's just, Soul Shield's insane. It goes into your soul, so you're forwarding his game plan by also stopping your opponent's game plan from progressing. I can't stress how good enough, or like how good this card is. I can't stress enough how good this card is. That's what I was trying to say. Get your hands on 3 of these. You run them in Prism. You run them in this card. So if you're a fan of the Light Heroes, you're going to be running this card. Assuming that we stick on the Light theme for the next set for Kingdoms, this card is going to be even more valuable. Because Soul Shield is... I'm confident in saying that it is the best defense reaction in the game, and I don't think there's anything that is even in consideration.
Yeah. I'm gonna say that this card, like you said, the utility of it, but the kicker is putting it into your soul. Like, the defense reaction is fine. Like, you shut down a turn and you stifle your opponent. But, geez, does it really annoy me that it also advances your game plan. Like, it not only defends, but it's going to advance your... It's basically like how Leviathan needs a card in her graveyard as a resource. Well, you need cards in your soul for a resource. So you're not only blocking them, but you're providing yourself an additional resource. So... It's really good. It is outstanding, and yeah, there's nothing that we can say about it that the card doesn't kind of say for itself. So, my choice will then just be to pull up Celestial Cataclysm. We've talked about it, or at least I think all 3 of these gentlemen have brought it up at some point. I'm not going to even ask their opinion on this. I'm just going to read this card to you and tell you that it's outstanding. It's a 0-cost light majestic attack for 7, so that's great against Prism. It's a defense for 3. As an additional cost, to play Celestial Cataclysm, banish 3 cards from your hero's soul, and then go again. So as they have all brought up earlier in the cast, this card does take some setup. However, the high ceiling of it is outstanding. Sometimes you don't even mind pitching this or souling this. Just having it to block against Prism is outstanding. It checks that box. It blocks generically. It checks that box. It's a 0-cost. It checks that box. So there's the value here is too good to pass up. So you can easily run 3 copies of this card with Boltyn, and I've had it played enough against me to know that there's nothing that the 3 of them can say that this card doesn't say for itself. So, with that being said, we've covered the light cards, we've covered the light warrior cards.
Jim, if I could interject really quick on the...
on the big cheese?
On the Cataclysm.
Yeah, go for it, baby. Go for it.
So, funny enough, after your spiel there, I've actually been going down on this card a bit the last few times I've been playing. And the reason being is it is a very, very steep cost to banish 3 cards from your soul. That is a very, very high cost to pay. Now, against Prism, as you mentioned with the Boltyn Blade, you can play it against Prism. However, right now in my main deck, I play 1 copy, and the reason being, as I mentioned with this banishing from the soul, you don't really want to see this early at all. It's either going to be a pitch or a block in those situations, because if you exhaust your soul and your opponent's still at 25, 30 health-ish, you're starting from scratch, and I just think it's much better to keep cards in your soul than to get 7 damage through and have nothing in your soul and you have to restart. So the reason I went down to 1 is because, as you mentioned earlier, with Beacon of Victory, you kind of are sort of playing 4 copies of this card, air quotes, because you do have the ability to search for it with the Beacon of Victory on that insane turn when you're trying to finish out the game or put them at a very low life total. To where then maybe, having less cards in your soul isn't as much of a detriment to you finishing the game. So that's kind of why I've been going down on it. Obviously, I could be wrong, but I've done it a few times where I have aggressively used the Cataclysm like early to like mid, like I said, around that 30-ish health total, maybe 20-ish, and it feels really bad to have to start over and try to replenish the soul from scratch. So
I don't think you can play it there. Like that's like this is like the ultimate setup card. So
that's what I'm saying. I would rather not have it at all. I'm not going to use it. I'd rather have something else that I
Chris,
can
can I ask you if you were to, I know you're right now you're sticking with the 60 setup. If you were to, let's say, run 9 equipment and be able to go up to like 71, and you were gonna enter a tournament, would you have all 3?
I have it in the list for sure. As Ryan mentioned, you need to have the 7s for the Prism.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, then again, if Prism, like let's just say hypothetically, let's say Prism for some reason isn't super well represented in an overall meta, I would even be tempted to not include it in the sideboard and just hope to not run into a bunch of Prisms if they're not a bunch that you're expecting to play in the tournament. But yeah, not to kind of be a broken record, but I would just rather have in my deck, instead of having this card, which is basically dead until you need it, I'd rather have another enabler, like a charge card. I'd rather have a pump card to try to push some damage through, like a Plunder Run, or a Nimbalism, or a Captain's Call, or Illuminate. Like, I'm just kind of looking at my deck now, and yeah, I'd rather have the enabler pieces, or, you do have the payoffs of the Valiant Thrust as well, which is more consistent of a payoff than the Cataclysm is for the same amount of damage.
So I want to say, like, I don't think you're wrong. I just think, like, in the sense of Boltyn in general, the ceiling that this provides is insane, and you as a personal player want to increase your baseline floor instead of that ceiling of like, I'm gonna hit this and it's gonna go off, which I don't. We talked about this with various cards of him. I don't think either is wrong. I think it's just an objective way to go about wanting to build him and seeing how it goes.
Sorry, Jim. I should say the main reason, as I said before, that you can get away with playing less of these is because of Beacon of Victory. That's like the main reason why, because you can play one and you can kind of get it. The turn when you really want it is that insane turn anyway, most of the time. Because you're going to have natural go again off the Cataclysm. So I don't know. I'm just, spitballing here.
No, I like it. Yeah. I think it provides like a different way to objectively look at this card, because obviously its value of what it provides is insane. But then I think you make a good counter argument that, like you said, and like Ryan had set up, it's the ultimate setup card. When it goes off, it's outstanding. But if you don't want to have that risk of like getting it early and not having it be a setup, and you would rather just forward your game plan, then I don't think anyone can fault you for not trying to do that.
Chuck the lightning bolt.
And just to echo Chris's point too, if you're going to play this after a beacon, just you need to have 4 cards in your soul. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to pull it off, because you need the one to obviously buff beacon, and then you need to have 3 more in your soul to be able to play Cataclysm. So make sure you do your math and like check it twice before you play beacon, before you do this, because it's an easy mistake to mess up. And if you're in an actual tournament, your opponent's probably not going to let you go back and correct that. So just check that twice.
We're talking about backtracking.
That's all I'm going to say. I'm just letting people know.
Okay, so moving on from the big.
Usually need 5.
Yeah, that's what you said, Ryan. Right? You like 5.
Well, no, I'm saying if you beacon, you have to pull one.
Well, I'm saying you said you like playing this card. You said earlier you only play this card if you have like 5 in soul.
Yeah, 5, yeah. 4 if I have like another card, like Enlightened Strike, so I can threaten 14.
Yeah,
something like that.
Well, but it already has the built-in go again, so you technically don't.
Oh, you have
5.
to search off beacon, Bob. So you use the beacon for 1, then you have to give that attack go again. So you have to pull another card.
Yeah, well, you just search for Cataclysm, and then you play that.
You can't give the card that you. Let's say you play like an Engulfing Light or something like that. You have to play beacon, then pull 1. You have to give that go again somehow. Beacon doesn't have go again. You have to pull
Oh, I see what you're
pull
saying.
another one to give go again.
See, exactly, yeah. So you need 5. There you go. See, I messed up the math too.
Your opponent would
mess it
not let you take that back, Bob.
up.
All right,
So
I'm
5.
gonna.
Five's the magic number,
All right,
and that's why you don't search for. That's why you don't search for Cataclysm on the beacon.
Oh my gosh. All right. Anyways, I think it's good no matter which way you chop it. I'm gonna bring up. I'm looking at like the warrior cards that came out in Monarch because I want to wrap this up soon. And Ryan alluded to how Spilled Blood could be good with axes. So we don't need to talk about it necessarily because none of them run this in their current iteration of their deck because they're not playing the axes version. But a card I do want to bring up, which I think some of you tried out, maybe added, maybe cut, maybe have some thoughts on, is Duskpath Pilgrimage. It's a 1-cost warrior action. Your next weapon attack this turn gains +3, and if this hits, you may attack an additional time with this weapon. Chris, what are your thoughts on the Duskpath Pilgrimage in general?
So in a vacuum, this card is great. I think Dorinthia style. It's a great card to fill your arsenal. Kind of. I'm sorry, you get to attack an additional time with the weapon.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. In my initial play of Boltyn, I did have more of the weapon buffs, like Duskpath, Pilgrimage, Nature's Path, Warrior's Valor, etc., Sharpened Steel, all that kind of stuff. And it just felt a little awkward and a little clunky. So at the moment, I have 0 weapon buffs in my deck, and in the beginning stages, not really knowing which way to go towards the weapon buffs or towards the attack action cards, I kind of just looked at the 2 rares that are the payoffs we mentioned before, Battlefield Blitz and Valiant Thrust. Like, those 2 rare cards are the payoff rares in the Light Warrior package. Mm-hmm. So by looking at those, I just, it's like streamline the deck, go all towards that angle, and I stripped everything out that's based on the weapon. So as Bob mentioned and Ryan mentioned before, axes and all these warrior cards, I believe, are just meant for Dorinthia. I don't really think any of these are meant for the Ser Boltyn, at least in the current context of the card pool.
I think the only weapon buff that I run is Razor, and it's not even meant for the weapon. I think it's like you use it for the 0s and the 1s. I think it's very hard to kind of want to buff Raiden or his weapons. If you're running Raiden, like, no reason to want to buff the weapon before. You want the attack react with like Razor, but like I like Duskpath. I think it's a great Dorinthia card.
Yeah.
But I don't think it fits Boltyn.
Yeah, I tried playing it in the beginning too, and it just, I ended up pitching this card for resources or anything more than I ended up playing it.
And you attack Raiden for 3, right? Even if you give it go again, you're using a soul 1, so that's not good. But then Raiden is now a 0 attack until you charge. So like, what are you really accomplishing there?
Yeah. I think in, like we all said, like Chris said, Chris put it perfectly. So I'm not even gonna add anything. Just in a vacuum, it's really good, but.
Yeah, I think it's great with Dorinthia. Play it in Dorinthia, like put it in there. You get to attack with Dawnblade again without burning her ability. I think it's a great thing.
Okay, so last but definitely not least, because it's intriguing. They gave no equipment necessarily that's like Light Warrior specific. But there are 2 equipment pieces that came out in this set of Monarch. The Gallantry Gold and then the Valiant Dynamos. And I just want to pull up the Gallantry Gold here for a second. And I just want to talk about, like, is this Gallantry Gold important to Boltyn? Because, like, we've seen the Dreamweavers be very important to Prism. We've seen the Hooves of the Shadow Beast be very important to Lavaya. is the warrior equipment arms that came out this set important to Boltyn, or is this something that none of you guys use?
You should pull up the stubby hammerers, because I think that if he's going to run a generic arm, I think you want to run that over Gallantry Gold.
Okay, I can do that. But really quick, though, like the pay 1, destroy the gold, your weapon attacks get +1, this turn go again, that's probably better for Dorinthia, right?
Yeah, the best part of this is battle worn and you defend for 1.
Card.
Yeah.
That's
okay,
for Boltyn.
I'll pull up the stubby hammers. Hold on.
Yeah.
Chris,
I was gonna say the best part, as Bob said, the best part about the Gallantry Gold is it has a defensive 1 with battle worn. My equipment suite right now has a lot of 0 blocks, except for this Arcanite or Arcanite Skullcap. I kind of, as Ryan said, I do like the stubbies. I was also wanting to give a shout out to the Bracers of Belief, which is from Arcane Rising, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of a similar type effect to the stubbies. But anything to be hitting your attack action cards, I think is better than hitting the weapon.
Yeah.
Now, granted, again, you don't have a block value on the stubbies. You don't have a block value on the Bracers of Belief. So that is something to consider. However, the ceiling for getting some damage through and just pumping your attacks to get Boltyn online is better with the stubbies and the Bracers of Belief. I would agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other option, I run the Braveforge Bracers, the Legendary Warrior equipment, and never have used their ability. It's strictly there for the 2 blocks, so you might want to run the stubbies or the Bracers of Belief, or is it Bracers of Belief?
Bracers of Belief, I think it's called.
There you go. Yeah, so you might want to go that route just for the pumps and to turn on Boltyn. I just run Braveforge because it just kind of corrects his blocking problem, but you never use that ability. Or if you do, it's a very rare occasion. So it almost feels like a wasted slot.
I think it's funny that that's kind of the case here for the arms options, because it's also kind of the case for the legendary legs that they gave in this set as well. The Valiant Dynamos at the beginning of your end phase, if you have attacked 2 or more times with weapons this turn, you may remove a -1 counter from the Valiant Dynamo, battle worn 1 defense. I believe I can speak for all 3 of you here when you would much rather have the Snapdragon Scalers to give an attack go again, as much as you would like to turtle shell up and potentially swing with Raiden 2 times a turn. I don't think you guys do that much, so you don't see too much value here. Am I off the mark on that assessment, or am I kind of spot on there?
No, you're spot on, man. I don't know if Valiant has a home. Like, Kasai probably uses them the best in Blitz.
Yeah, she probably does.
Other than that, we thought that this card was going to, burn basically ruin Flesh and Blood.
Yeah,
Warrior God, what? And I don't even know if Dorinthia wants it. She wants those refraction bolters because she can then give anything go again. I don't know.
It could be, if in a larger scope of a full metagame, if there's, real tournaments going on and stuff, which we're getting closer to, hopefully, if Ninja or Katsu becomes more of a piece of the meta, then maybe this is an equipment you have in your suite for that situation. But
sure.
Like Jim said, I'm with Boltyn since he is trying to be aggressive and do these insane combo turns. I'm just all gas. I got no defense on my equipment except for the helmet, so I'm definitely on the snappies.
You have to have the snappies.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta go snappies.
Yeah.
All right, so that kind of wraps it up as far as everything that Monarch provided Boltyn, and the things that our team, the Roundtable of Wraith, have tested with Boltyn thus far. So if you have any suggestions or comments, or you want to tell us how dumb we are, we love it. So bring the heat, bring the praise, bring the heat. We don't care. Just connect with us in any way. One of us usually responds pretty quickly. We will deck link these three gentlemen's iterations of these, and then probably LSS's budget blitz version as well. I can believe I can speak for myself and these guys that we appreciate the quick growth that we've had from the channel. And we continue to aim to put out some high-quality gameplay, video cast, and deck tech analysis for you guys. So thank you for being part of the table. We welcome every single one of you. We appreciate it. And as far as Ryan, Bob, Chris, and myself, the Roundtable of Wraith is peacing out. Have a good one, everybody.
Later.